Good evening, everyone. My name is Mayor Ron Paull. I'd like to call to order the council meeting number 18 for April. Where am I getting April from? August 26, 2025. And I would like to express that we have Councillor Elliott attending on Zoom and regrets from Councillor Runge. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize that we meet on the traditional territory of the LHTAKO DENE Nation. I will now look for a motion to approve the agenda as circulated. Moved Councillor Runge, or pardon me, moved Councillor Vick, seconded Councillor Rudenberg. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now a motion to adopt the regular council minutes of July 29, 2025. Councillor Goulet, Councillor McKay. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have no presentations, and now we will move into delegations, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce the new general manager of our Three Rivers Community Forest, Nick Pickles. Nick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. It is a real privilege to talk about the community forest to Mayor and Council and anyone in attendance. It's something we're really passionate about, so any opportunity to talk about it, you won't shut me up, so here I am. My name's Nick Pickles. I'm the General Manager of the Three Rivers Community Forest, and along with LHTAKO, who's our Forestry Manager, we have a support team behind us at Conscious Management that kind of handle the administrative and any other activities that we have as well. We started our tenure in early January of 2025, so we've hit the ground running, and I'm excited to kind of talk about what we have been up to. But being my first delegation, I wasn't sure how familiar everyone is with the community forest model and the Three Rivers Community Forest. So with that being said, I would like to cover what a community forest is, an overview of the Three Rivers Community Forest. I'm going to talk about the governance, culture, and the economy piece, how we're planning for a resilient landscape, and what we've been working on so far, including some collaboration pieces with higher education institutions, and then some closing final reflections after that. So what is a community forest? It's an area-based tenure granted by the province of BC. It's designed to be managed by local organisations, in our case, municipality and First Nations. It's designed to provide long-term access to forest resources for community benefit. It focuses on local decision-making, stewardship, and sustainable forest use. Revenues are typically reinvested into the community, as well as jobs, education, and infrastructure built into that. It encourages collaboration of governance between Indigenous nations and local governments, which is the Three Rivers Community Forest is a great example of that. And we look to balance economic, ecological, and social values over short-term profit. So the Three Rivers Community Forest agreement was signed in late October 2024. We have 4 equal shareholders: ESDLA, LHTAKO, DENE, NASCO First Nations, and obviously the City of Quesnel. Our mandate is stewardship, ecological resilience, and community benefit. The area spans just over 38,000 hectares, and we have an annual allowable cut of just under 43,000 cubic metres of conifer, and an additional 10,500 of deciduous, meaning what we're allowed to cut. The area supports a diverse range of uses, including ranching, recreation, tourism, and ecological and cultural significant areas. So here's a simple representation of how the TRCF functions. We see the 4 equal shareholders, each represented by a director, and then their directive is passed on to the general manager to apply So we have 4 very diverse shareholders, each with their own priorities and values and pressures, and we're not always going to agree. And that's okay. That diversity is one of our greatest strengths, because we don't operate in an echo chamber, and it's through honest and sometimes tough conversations we get more thoughtful decisions. So the role of the board is to represent each of their shareholders, and our job as management is to act in the interest of all of them and the broader community. And what makes it work is strong relationships built on trust, transparency, and a shared vision. The governance reflects that, and when we do hit friction, it probably means we're brushing up against a policy or process that needs refinement. We've spent a lot of time building a robust policy framework, but that's an ongoing piece that we'll continue to work on. So how community forests bridge governance, culture, and the economy. Community forest is where innovation and accountability meet. Community forests are one of the few places in the BC tenure system where innovation and accountability can come together. We're not responsible for making our we're responsible for making our operations financially viable, but we're not locked into the same commercial restrictions that a volume-based licensee would have, and this gives us space to lead a little differently. It means we can test new approaches, so adaptive silviculture, grounded in observation, meaning we can do partial cutting and pre-commercial thinning, and I'll kind of elaborate on that a little later. We can do ecosystem-based management informed by cultural and local values, and our partnership allows us to blend ecological, economic, and Indigenous worldviews into our management. And we don't just talk about it, we're actually doing that in the Quesnel area now. We have these innovations working. We're trying to use new and improved equipment, state-of-the-art prescriptions, and we're working with funders on a weekly basis to bring that innovation to the ground in Quesnel. When we talk about planning for a resilient landscape, it's more than just the trees. We're talking about ecological, cultural, and economic values. So because we are local, we can be agile decision makers, and it gives us that flexibility to react to real-world timely events. So if we have a forest health outbreak, or we want to reduce wildfire risk in a particularly vulnerable area, we can do that a lot more quickly than a traditional volume-based licensee would. We're looking at adaptive silviculture, where we can build resilience into the stand, while also increasing that long-term per hectare value, so essentially growing a higher quality log. And resilience doesn't stop at the tree line. It means supporting cultural practices, recreation, ranching, and making sure our local contractors and mills have the capacity to operate and endure, so the benefits stay within the community. So what have we been working on? Initially, we had some foundational set up, so the administrative side of a new organisation, so setting up accounts and working on a forest stewardship plan, which is essentially the minimum standard for a stewardship management within the Quesnel timber supply area. We've been working on an inventory analysis, so we're looking at what we have in terms of different stand dynamics, where they are in their serial stage, meaning their age. That allows us to plan for a longer term outlook. So we're looking at building a 5-year plan, which we're progressing really well with. And we've also been working on relationship building, so engaging with stakeholders, the local recreation groups, as well as our shareholders. So we have been collaborating with higher education institutes. We've had several conversations with UNBC. We're looking at exploring trials with new LiDAR units, which help us assess stands more accurately. which helps us manage long-term in terms of how much volume we have, what is vulnerable to infestation from beetle outbreaks, and that kind of goes into the second research area that we're looking at, is how to make our stands more resilient for mountain pine beetle outbreaks. In this case, it's not a matter of if a mountain pine beetle outbreak will happen, it's when. So we are looking to build resiliency into our current stands, and we're working with UNBC to realise that. We're also working with UBC on the operator training program, which I've no doubt Erin will kind of talk about later. And we've also been exploring ideas for integration as a multi-tenure use area. So working directly with one of the local range tenure holders with ranching and trying to co-manage their range area in order to have that benefit both from a forestry perspective and a resiliency perspective, but also increase the value to someone who has cattle ranging on that land. And we're also looking at fibre utilisation and using as much as we can in terms of pulp, chips, biochar, and we're exploring those ideas currently with UBC. We also have a couple of fuel treatments that we're working on. There's the Dragon Mountain Fuel Management Project, which is funded by Forest Enhancement Society. The idea there is to obviously reduce the fine fuel in and around that area. It was identified by BC Wildfire Service as a particularly vulnerable area due to the accumulation of fine fuels, and also increase protection or access to critical infrastructure, namely the cell tower and the radio towers atop of the Dragon Mountain area. Currently, there is only one access point for that cell tower site, and given that fact, BC Wildfire Services can't actively go in there and fight it because they need multiple exit points. So our prescription is designed to open up a road access from the south side. So if in the event of a fire, the wildfire crews can get up there and have multiple exit points if there was a fire to go on. Also, what we found historically, when we go in and do a fuel treatment, it actually enhances the functionality of the ecosystems locally. So we're getting increased wildlife activity. We enhance the area for recreation and so access and recreation, as well as herbaceous and shrub layers have really reacted well. So we have increase in culturally significant plants, and as well as berry production, which is a good indicator of a well-functioning ecosystem. We're also utilising as much fibre as we can in these areas. So that's selling the wood to local mills and chipping and pulp and biochar, and we're looking at all these options to maximise the use. So this is the area that I kind of just talked about. And you can see our area is highlighted in red. The cell towers at the top of the park there, surrounded by PU1, which is one of our treatment units. And last winter there was a resiliency treatment conducted by West Fraser, which is that you can see the white area that provides continuity for the fuel break there. And so our plan is to have the road continue up to the top of the cell tower with treatments on both sides of the road. So if there was a fire going through the area, we can use that extraction point. BC Parks have got have put a fuel treatment for the road within the park out to tenure, and I believe they did get quite a few bids in there. I'm not sure of the result of that at this stage, but our treatment will help support their treatment within the park. And anything we can do to encourage parks to do treatment within the boundary is good as well. So we've tied into both the east side and the southwest side of the park. We also have a Wonderland fuel treatment. Again, this is a FES BC funded project. Initially, an initiative brought by Aaron through the City of Quesnel and the Forest Innovation Centre. We're working with the stakeholders and partners, so the Bike Club, to coordinate our skid trail design. The treatment unit that the community forest is managing is a mechanical treatment, so it's in our wheelhouse for area of expertise. So what we're going to do is work with the Bike Club to design skid trails to extract the blowdown pine that's littered the treatment area. So we have stacked, the mountain pine beetle came in and caused significant mortality of the pine in the area. That's all fallen down and it's jackstrawed and created this fuel hazard. So it's laddering fuels. The idea is to come in, extract that blowdown and have as minimal impact on the trails and their infrastructure as possible. So for that reason, we're using purpose-designed machinery, so harvester forwarders, which have like a low ground impact, as well as precise heads that allow minimal scarring to the residual stand. So the trees that are left behind standing. So harvesting operations are part of our planning process. As I alluded to earlier, we're looking at innovation, different ways to manage the forest. So we're using modern techniques and equipment, and this allows us to get better fibre utilisation, as well as looking after the residual stands. So we're looking at pre-commercial thinning, which is those juvenile over-occupied stands. When you see those kind of jail bar looking stands where you can't walk through, we're looking at thinning those out and allowing those stands to grow into a resilient forest. As well as commercial thinning and selective harvesting, this allows us to extract some volume today in terms of saw logs and pulp utilisation, as well as grow that high-value log that the mills around here desire, so that peeler component in a long-term planning approach. So systems like the harvester forwarder are a great example of low ground impact, precise control and better protection against those residual stands being damaged. We do need skilled operators to improve the efficiency of operations. Because the prescriptions are getting more and more complex because of legislation and because of the types of stands we're working in, we need really good operators. And what we're doing as the community forest is looking to design packages for local contractors to justify the investment into these expensive machines. So like your harvester and forwarders are quite expensive units. So what we want to do is design a program where we can justify their investment, and then they can buy the right equipment fit for purpose, and they can invest in our youth and train them up. And then that's in collaboration with the Innovation Centre. Hopefully we can facilitate that locally. Okay, I guess just final reflections. We do work in a shared forest, so that means we are going to have some complexity. We have people with different values, groups with different values, shareholders that have different values. So that's why leadership does matter. And it's not just a voice at the table, but as co-creators in the future of the Quesnel Forest area. So the TRCF board has provided really strong leadership and have empowered management, and will continue to empower management to deliver on this vision. And hopefully that'll set us up long term for a community benefit. That's all from me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'm open to any questions that you may have. And yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Nick. That's very informative, a real eye-opener on our new community forest, so thank you for that. I'll now open the floor to council questions, comments. Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much. I'm very excited that you're here tonight to introduce yourself and bring this forward. I think it's such an important asset for the community, and we're so fortunate to be partners in this community forest. So I just had a couple of notes that I made as you spoke. You talked about building resiliency to help us with future mountain pine beetle outbreaks. Is that tied to the thinning practice where you allow trees to essentially become larger, more robust? Is that part of the strategy?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So the idea is, and this is where UNBC will get involved, is we would treat stands with various different levels of removal, and what their plan is to inoculate a few stems within that stand and to test the resiliency of those stands, the individual stems that are infected. So it's going to be a longer research project, but the idea is, okay, well, how much removal is going to improve that resiliency and allow that functional stand long term?
And the last question, if you'll allow me, Mr. Mayor, is I'm very, very excited to learn that there's equipment that is more sensitive to the treatments you're prescribing that are less damaging to the environment. So is there a proposal that we, within the city, with our facility here, that we would offer training on this equipment? Is that what you're proposing, or?
Yeah, and Aaron will probably be able to talk to this a little more. The community forest currently owns a simulator for a harvester forwarder, and the idea is to get a training program in Quesnel and get young people taught on how to use these complex machines. Where Aaron's been advocating pretty much non-stop since I started my tenure to try and get this off the ground. At the provincial level, it has been difficult to get funding, but we're working on other avenues to try and facilitate that long term. So, and getting community groups in there to get exposure to it, and then hopefully get some traction, and eventually one day have a training program hosted by the community forest.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone else? No? I've got a couple of questions here. I guess not so much a question, but a comment. I'm a lifelong recreational user of the forestry land base, and anybody around here knows that I'm very concerned about fiber. And you know, when I marvel at, and I know this would likely be outside of the footprint of the community forest, but I will bring it out that you know, the burn piles out there, there's so much wonderful fiber in there that could be utilized, and I'm happy to see you're talking about fiber utilization, and I would hope that also translates into capturing and harvesting that fiber, because the more that we do to clean the land base of residual fiber, that presents an opportunity to replant and rejuvenate that land base. So I'm happy to see that. On the matter of collaboration with higher education, you note that you collaborate with UNBC and UBC. Or UBC? Is there anything there with the College of New Caledonia?
They have been collaborating with the training program. I haven't specifically worked with them during my tenure, but that's definitely something that we're going to look into.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, we have a wonderful campus here, and obviously we, want to take as much advantage of that as possible. No further questions or comments from council, so with that, I'll thank you and again say welcome aboard, and we look forward to having you back again as the community forest evolves and moves ahead. So thank you, and we'll just have a minute here to sort of transfer the technology to our next delegation. Okay, just before we get going, I'll just formally introduce Dr. Barb Kane, and she is the regional lead for mental health with Northern Health. And I understand, Dr. Kane, that you have a couple of associates with you, and I'll leave that to you to introduce them and then proceed with your presentation.
Oh, all right. Thanks. Yeah, thanks very much for having me. And I invited, well, there's another person from Northern Health who's online, Michelle Lawrence. She's the executive lead for mental health and substance use, although I'm not sure that's exactly her title, but so she's in Prince George. And I also invited Dr. Egboji, who is the local psychiatrist in Quesnel. I think he's the only psychiatrist who's ever been in Quesnel, and he's been here for the last 11 years. So I asked him to come along as well. Yeah. Great, thanks. So I'm here to talk to you today about why many of us think that the North needs a psychiatric hospital. So in 2018, actually, let me just see if I want to move my slide around here. Yeah. So in 2018, I got a position at Northern Health that allowed me to look at issues pertaining to mental health beyond treating individual patients. And I decided to start by looking at patients who stayed on the psychiatry ward too long because there was nowhere else to send them. And at that time, there was one patient who'd been on our 20-bed ward for about 5 years, and another one who had been there for about 3 years. And our average length of stay is supposed to be 2 weeks, according to national statistics. So we had tried to place these people out of the hospital, but they always came back, mostly because of violence. So I then wanted to know how many of these people there were across the North to see the scale of community resources that we needed to develop. And in doing that, I found that there were more long-stay psychiatric patients than I knew about. And that because of their long stays, they were having a significant impact on the overall hospital functioning, not just our ward. That was kind of an eye-opener for me. I hadn't realized how much those long-stay patients were affecting everything in the hospital. So the patients who stay on our ward are generally the most severe ones. But because they are there, other patients who should get onto our ward can't get in. So those patients either stay in the emergency department for days waiting for a bed on our ward, or they go to other wards like surgery or medicine or even pediatrics and occasionally even maternity if we're really overcrowded, which happens more than, well, a lot. And just to give you an example, if you have 52 psychiatric patients in a year who each stay for a week on the surgery ward because they can't get to our ward, that's one less bed available for surgery in the year. The average length of stay for surgery, they tell me, is about 3 days. So that means, like, ballpark, 100 surgeries are not going to get done because psychiatry patients are on the surgery ward. And if there's 10 patients occupied by psychiatric patients, that's 1,000 surgeries that aren't going to get done. Now, we don't usually have 10 psychiatric patients on the ward, but the other long-term patients who would be on the surgery ward are the long-term care patients who stay in for long periods of time. So between psychiatry and long-term care, like nursing home type patients who can't get to other facilities, they are really affecting surgery. I mean, surgery is one of the areas that gets affected. And you can't tell a suicidal patient or a patient who's been brought in psychotic and violent by the police to come back next week when there's a bed. But you can cancel elective surgery when there aren't enough surgical beds. So elective surgery is one of the canaries in the coal mine for hospital overcrowding. And hospital overcrowding is really two big areas. One is the nursing home type patients, and the other one is the psychiatry patients. And I hadn't really realized how much impact psychiatry was having when I started doing this work. So why are these people staying so long on our ward? And one of the main reasons is that the only psychiatric hospital in BC, Riverview Hospital, which was in Port Coquitlam, closed in 2012. I'm not sure exactly why it closed. It was before my time. They made the decision in the 80s, I think. And why some people thought we could do without it. Some of it was probably financial, and I think some was the idea that people could be treated and managed in the community. There was a stigma then, and still today, I think, against institutionalization and keeping people in big psychiatric hospitals. And some long-term psychiatric patients can be managed in the community, but there's a subset of patients who cannot be managed in the community, at least not without lengthy prior treatment, and I mean sometimes years, because I've had patients who were in Riverview for years, and it took them that long. It's so slow, some of our treatment, that it took that long for them to get stable enough that they could be managed in the community. And then there's another subset that just doesn't get better. And those people will always be a risk to themselves or others or both. A case in point is the person who did the Chinatown stabbing in 2023. So I only know him from what I read in the newspaper. He's from Kitimat. He murdered his teenage daughter by stabbing her in 2006. And he was found not criminally responsible by reason of mental disorder, which is the Canadian version of not guilty by reason of insanity. And he's been in the forensic hospital in Port Coquitlam ever since then. So the forensic hospital, psychiatric hospital, is only for people involved in the criminal justice system. It is a psychiatric hospital, but I can't get anybody in there. The only people who can get people in there, for the most part, are judges. So they can get ordered there by a judge, but I can't get somebody in there. Whereas when Riverview was open, I could get people into Riverview. So the person who did the Chinatown stabbing was in the forensic hospital. He got a day pass, and he did the stabbing. He'd been in that hospital for over 10 years. He'd probably had every treatment that we could give him, and he was still not better. And some people just never get better. They're not all violent to other people. Some of them are more danger to themselves, or they can't look after themselves. And those people need lifelong treatment or care, some of them on locked wards. So I've been practicing psychiatry in Prince George since 1990. And when Riverview was available to us, the severely ill and the violent people would come to our ward. But in that, I would say sort of 1990 to about 2005, they wouldn't stay on our ward even a week. I mean, we can handle violent patients on a short-term basis. Our nurses are pretty amazing at doing that. But those patients would then, they'd be on our ward for less than a week, usually off to Riverview, and they would be there for as long as they needed to be, which could be months or years or indefinite. And now we get those people in, and we have nowhere to send them. So they have to stay at our hospital. So that means that we're keeping people with a level of violence that we were not built for. Another aspect of this is that in the past, when some of the patients finished their time at the forensic psychiatric hospital, if they weren't ready for discharge, or if they were never going to be ready for discharge, some of them went to Riverview they could stay indefinitely. So now the forensic hospital doesn't have that offload. They can't get those patients out. They try to send them back to our hospital, which we resist actively. It's not appropriate to send people who've been in the forensic hospital for 10 years to the psychiatric ward in Prince George. It's not, so, I mean, for the most part, we win those battles. But the other thing about this is this forensic psychiatric hospital, it's in gridlock. So the court and the jail can't get anybody in there either, because it used to be if somebody got mentally ill in jail, unrelated to their crime, so they're just, in there for whatever, a year or something like that, and they develop schizophrenia while they're in jail, the jail's place to send people was to the forensic hospital, not to us. But now, they can't get people into the forensic hospital because it's so full. So sometimes they send them to our ward, and sometimes they release them without any treatment because you can't treat people involuntarily in jail. You can only treat them involuntarily in a hospital. And lots of patients with severe mental illness, they don't realize that they're mentally ill, so they won't agree to the treatment. So they then get discharged in a very unstable mental state. And I know that some of the crimes that have been committed in Quesnel have been committed by some of those people. I forgot to mention this, actually. I'll go back a bit. One of the problems we have, I think, in psychiatry is the issue of confidentiality, because I can't talk to you about what happens in the psychiatric hospital for the most part. I can't tell you the kind of things that go on, at least not on individual cases. So you don't know what happens. You don't know what goes on in psychiatric wards unless something happens, like the guy from Chinatown doing that stabbing, or somebody does something in the community and they've been in a hospital or they just got out of jail or things like that. Then you hear about it, but you don't hear about it otherwise. And there's lots of other stuff that happens that is quite disturbing. And it makes it our job harder because it's harder to advocate for the resources like I'm advocating because nobody knows what we're doing. I mean, I've looked after people. I don't like talking about it really because, I get paid to deal with it and you don't. But, I've looked after people who've cut off their hands and disemboweled themselves and done all kinds of things to their families and terrible stuff, but it doesn't get in the newspaper. So you don't know what's going on. I mean, that's not every day, but it's not really infrequent. So anyway, that's just one issue. And I thought I'd also show you, I don't know if this picture is very good, but this was one patient. This is the kitchen area at the hospital in Prince George, which I think you can see has been kind of ripped up by one of the patients. And that was taken just after, the patients were all in there having lunch when this guy went berserk. So you go in there for your depression or because your wife left you or for whatever it is, and you're beside yourself, and then you have to run for your life because somebody else is tearing the place up. It's not very conducive to your own mental health. You know, we're mixing people that shouldn't be mixed together in the ward. And we're getting more people in from the forensic system into our hospital. They're not the only people that are violent. We have people who haven't been involved with the forensic system, but it's definitely slowly, it's kind of ramping up how many patients that are coming out of the criminal justice system. So, okay, just a minute. Yeah, we've definitely had patients say they don't feel safe on the wards at times. They'll tell the nurses they don't feel safe when certain people are out on the ward. This also means we're discharging people who are still dangerous and who shouldn't be discharged, but we can't keep them forever. We just can't keep people in forever. I mean, we keep them for as long as we can, but we have to discharge them. So there's a lot of moral distress for all the staff in discharging people who have an increased risk of violence to others, in particular because of their mental illness. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this. I am the person who's letting them out. So it's not just me. Other doctors obviously are as well. But I want to be able to say that I tried everything I could to get the right resources, because it's not very comfortable when you know that somebody you're letting out of the hospital might do something to somebody else in the future. So it's not, it's not a very comfortable state to be in. So then I was going to talk about some of the other impacts on the community. So and these are like impacts of Riverview having shut down. So in 2008, the Vancouver Police Department did this telling report called Lost in Transition. So they noticed in 2007 that there was a marked increase in incidents involving people who were mentally ill, and some of it was minor property offenses, aggressive panhandlers, suicides, other tragic incidents, stuff that I suspect you have on the streets of Quesnel, because we sure have it in Prince George. So when Riverview was downsizing over about a 10-year period, and they closed in 2012. So they stopped taking admissions somewhere between 2002 and 2005. And the effects were starting to be felt right away. I talked to somebody who worked at Riverview during that time, and he gave the example of a patient who was discharged to another type of residential facility where he was supposed to stay instead of Riverview. However, he didn't last. Within a week, the police brought him back. But Riverview said, well, he doesn't have a bed here anymore. He's been discharged. So they had to take him to Royal Columbian Hospital, which is near Riverview. And that was basically the beginning of this transition from psychiatric hospital to general hospitals. I mean, I don't know that we were seeing it in 2007, but, it was a little bigger impact in the Lower Mainland first. But this 2008 Lost in Transition report recommended the development, they had other recommendations as well, but the development of a mental health care facility that could accommodate moderate to long-term stays for chronically mentally ill individuals. And this was like 4 years before Riverview closed. And it was also before the wide-scale use of some of the drugs that have led to increased violence on the streets. So crystal meth really wasn't in the picture much in 2012. I don't know if there's anybody here that works in that area, but it was maybe coming on the scene, but it wasn't really big yet. And fentanyl wasn't at all. It wasn't around at all in 2012. But I will show you this slide, and the impact of the drugs has definitely, oh, sorry, I'll turn this on. It's hard, oh, I don't know if you can see can you see my arrow on this? Yeah, okay. So this is 2012 here, right? And you can kind of see across, what this is diagnoses, mental health diagnoses from 2007 to 2018. So there's schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, depression, alcohol use. If you look at generally, most of them are pretty flat across that period of time. But in 2012, the substance use stuff, diagnoses, and substance use diagnoses in an emergency room is usually either an overdose or somebody's been brought in violent due to drug use. Those are the two main things. So for us, it's mostly drug-induced psychosis. So it absolutely took off in 2012. I don't think you can blame that on Riverview closing. But the fact that Riverview closed then did a couple of things. It meant there were a whole bunch of vulnerable people out on the street. And then the place that we could have handled them was gone. So it just kind of, I think that's why that just took off in emergency rooms. It was just, I mean, maybe some of that's just bad luck, I don't know. But it certainly made things worse in hospitals and in emergency rooms. So I said I wanted to see what community resources could be developed for these people when I started this. But I've learned over the last 5 or 6 years that severe subset of people cannot be managed in community resources. We have tried, and they end up back in the hospital. And the community resources they won't, and they shouldn't have to tolerate the ongoing violence. But we've been trying to put these people into homes and, basement suites and all kinds of places to see if we could manage them, and it's not working at all. Then there's been talk about building small, sort of less institutional sites for these patients. But what I've found, because there are some of those, but they don't work either, because if anybody gets violent, they just call the police and then they bring them back to the hospital. So the facilities have to be big enough that they can be staffed with enough people to deal with violent patients on a 24/7 basis. Riverview never had to call the police if somebody got violent. Riverview could handle them because they've got trained psychiatric teams, and they had enough staff. They knew how to deal with it, and they had the right resources. But that's not the case if you're trying to build smaller places. So I think it's been, unfortunately, a lot of well-intentioned, rose-colored glasses to say we don't want institutions, but there's a level of patients that you just need it doesn't have to be 800 beds, like Riverview was when it closed, but it can't be small homes either. And so it's the only way for it really to be safe for the patients, for the staff. So many of us have come to the conclusion that a psychiatric hospital, it's an essential part of the healthcare system. It's not, it's like having ORs. You have to have a psychiatric hospital at this level, and we don't have one. So I could maybe, skip, what's this slide? Yeah, I won't go over that slide, but so there's nowhere to send patients who need these extended stays in BC. We have no access in Northern Health, but BC has no access. Like, the whole of BC's in this. It's not just us. We're the only province in Canada with no access to long-term secure psychiatric care. We're the only ones that shut down our only psychiatric hospital. So a lot of other places reduced their, like, made them smaller, but they didn't shut them. All of this led to a petition asking for a psychiatric hospital, and that petition started in June 2024. You can find it, I should have put it up here, but anyway. You can find it on change.org under Northern BC Psychiatric Hospital. I imagine some of you are aware that the Prince George Youth Containment Center, or the youth jail, was closed in 2023, and it's being considered as a site for a psychiatric hospital. It's got the security, we could probably use more beds, but it's probably big enough. It's got 4 locked 12-bed units, all the rooms lock. I mean, it's a jail, so. And then there's what they used to use for their open custody is a 12-bed house on the site. It's a bit out of town. It's by the airport, so there's a lot of land around it. It's got a nice gym. It's got an art room. It's got all kinds of stuff because it was built for the youth offenders. So this is basically what we're advocating for in terms of trying to get some kind of facility, because it'll probably be a lot cheaper than trying to build a whole new one. So I guess we're, there's sort of an informal group of us trying to do this. But, anything that, City Council can do to support it, keep the pressure on a little bit with the government. They're looking at this, and I'm optimistic, but you can only be so optimistic, that it's going to happen. I think we're going to need to keep our finger on the pulse of it, basically. But it has to, to me, something has to happen. It's just because things aren't going to get better if we don't do that. So that's basically what I wanted to say. And I appreciate you listening.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kane. That is very, very informative, and I can certainly, and I think around the table, identify with that need. And we do have access, and every other community in the North Central region, regional districts have access through the North Central Local Government Association to get the ball rolling. So I'm going to open the floor up to questions. Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you. And first off, I want to say thank you to you and your colleagues. That can't be an easy job to want to go to every morning. Like, I just, it makes me ill thinking about it. You kind of answered the first question I had about this is just not a Northern Health issue. It sounds like every health authority is concerned about the lack of the long-term secure psychiatric care units. So it's interesting that the mayor just made the comment about NCLGA, because they did, through Fort St. James and Vanderhoof, put a resolution forward to UBCM, which was given an RR rating, which means that it's being referred back to the area association because it's a regional issue. So if we're going to make this a bigger pay attention issue, we have to make sure that the other health authorities are on board, because if it just comes from the north, that yes, we want something up in the north, but I think all of BC needs things happening, or buildings around, because one building's not going to solve the issue, because what will happen is you'll get everybody else sending up their persons or people to us, right? So I think we have to figure out how we make or get the other health authorities on board, the other area associations, so that this isn't just a northern issue. And I mean, the way that you have presented, it isn't just a northern issue. When all of BC has no access, how does that make any sense to those, even family members who are trying to do right with their family that needs this type of help? So I think, the petition, great, because it gets it out there. I find that sometimes those petitions have people from Timbuktu signing them, that kind of loses its emphasis when you have people who aren't being affected by it. But I think we have to figure out how, like I said, I'll repeat it again, how do we get this so that it's not just an NCLGA issue or a Northern Health issue? We have to make sure that we can get all of the area associations and the health authorities on board here to say, listen, something needs to change. And even though you've tried these little smaller pots of, people living in small houses or in basement suites, et cetera, it's not working. And the statistics prove that, right? You're very clear with those. So I don't have the answer right now how we make that happen, but I think that's how, if we're going to make this move forward, that's how it's going to have to be. It's going to have to be a big push from everybody that's involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah, I agree.
Councillor Elliott, I see you. You've got the floor. He's on.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Elliott's on Zoom.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I want to thank you very much for the report. It really hits home with me. My wife is a nurse in our hospital here, and I can attest to everything that you're saying. And quite honestly, at times it scares the heck out of me what's taking place. When my wife is getting code white training to be able to learn how to defend herself and others, it's frightening. Mm-hmm. So anything that we can do to help, I can't speak for everybody else, but I'll do the best I can. Please don't give up the fight. You've been in it a long time, and I really appreciate all your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, now I'm going to Councillor Goulet and then Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, and thanks, Dr. Kane. Thank you guys for the great presentation and the work that you're doing right now to keep our communities safe and where they are. So thank you. It's a big thank you. For me, it's about, I work in a nonprofit organization that sees this on a daily basis and sees the mental illness of people when they come into a building, and I commend the actions that you have to take in order to make that happen. There's always need to look at a psychiatric center. I think the petition is a wonderful idea. To Councillor Rudenberg's point, it's a bigger issue. It is a provincial issue, and we do need those all of the health authorities to be on board in order to do some type of a change. I think we can advocate for the best that we can in the north, and we can keep on doing that. I think the message can get out there, but we have a big issue within the province of British Columbia, right? When they closed Riverview, I knew and had people come in who were in Riverview, right? And that was a good, safe place for them. And now they're out on the street, right? They don't know where to go. They seem lost, confused, and they need that extra. So thank you very much for the work that you guys do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Goulet. Next is Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much, Dr. Kane, for your presentation. It just boggles the mind to me how messed up this is. You know, and the justification to close down Riverview just, did you say 800 beds got closed down? Was that the figure?
Yeah. So that was, at that time, well, even about now, it's probably not too far off. It's about 10% of all the hospital beds in BC got closed. And then the patients sort of haven't gone away. They've just gone either into the other hospitals, or they've gone onto the street. I mean, they're not all gone now, the original 800, but probably a lot of them are. But there was really no good plan for the new people who were going to come along. So they're the ones that we're dealing with now. Yeah. The ones who would be in Riverview if it wasn't for the fact that we didn't have it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kane, and thank you for what you do every day.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say I agree with Councillor Rudenberg. That's a challenge to try and figure out how to get health authorities working together, because they all have so many pressures. I haven't figured out how to do that. But I think in a way, maybe the reason it started in the north is I don't even know if we're worse off than the rest of BC. I'm not sure we are, but what's happened, because I've been here so long, and I've been able to see what it was like before and what it was like after. I think, in that sense, I have a unique perspective that, and I'm getting old, so there aren't going to be a lot of us doing this. But I also think, because in the north, you do get to know, across the north, a lot of the really severe mentally ill patients. So I get to know what they're all doing, because I hear about them from the other doctors. And if they aren't doing well in the sort of northern interior area, for example, even to somewhat for the whole of Northern Health, and they've been in our hospital, they're going to come back to our hospital. So if things aren't going well, they keep coming back and coming back. So that doesn't happen in the Lower Mainland. They go, they might be in Vancouver General, but next time they might be in St. Paul's, and the time after that they might be in Burnaby. So it's hard for people to see I think it's harder for them down there to see what's going on. I think it's been easier for me. So I think that's part of the reason that we actually can make the case maybe the better than anybody else can.
Just to the comment, maybe we start with the smaller health authorities like Vancouver Island, or wherever the Kootenays are. Like, start with I don't know, but I think we start with the ones who actually have the same kind of effect, or feel the same kind of effect as we do, and then you start to build that momentum. And I think that NCLGA could be that other momentum piece, and get the other area associations to start to understand what's going on. So I think there's an opportunity for NCLGA to actually lead on this, even though we know we know what we want for the north, but I think it's that bigger picture too. But anyway, we'll get. Yeah. We have to figure out something. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Dr. Kane, you said that you've been leading an informal charge to sort of action this new facility in the north?
Yeah, well, Northern Health is part of it as well, and so is PHSA. We're all looking at the Youth Containment Center. Right. But the petition actually started outside of Northern Health, and it was if you have a couple of minutes, it was a patient who had fired me, and who'd fired all the doctors and all the nurses and everybody. That she was a pretty difficult person. Anyway, she had something like at least 100 police contacts between January and June of last year. And despite the fact that she wasn't my patient anymore, I decided I was going to, the police were beside themselves with what to do with her. And because of the kind of problem she had, putting her in the hospital wasn't really, it wasn't really accomplishing much. So she just needs a safe place, a long-term place to stay because of the kind of problem that she has. Anyway, so I decided I was going to write a letter to Adrian Dix about her to say, we're beside ourselves. We have nothing to offer this lady. And so I took this to this thing called the Spirit Table in Prince George. I don't know if you have one in Quesnel, but it's a bunch of organizations that deal with people in the downtown area particularly, and they have this meeting every week where you could take difficult cases and you can ask the other organizations to kind of cut the red tape if you need something done. So I thought I'll take it to the Spirit Table and see, because they all knew her, if anybody would sign this letter. So I did that, and they said, yeah, we'll sign the letter, but we want to sign the letter about all the people who have these kind of issues, and we can't do anything with them. So I said, okay. I put that letter away, and I started writing another letter. And then I got a call from the police, and they said, we heard about your letter, and we'd like to take it to court. So I tried to get it signed, and this was in last June, and it was a nightmare trying to get everybody to sign it. And so I ended up just signing it myself and sending it to Adrian Dix. And then I took it back to the Spirit Table and said, that didn't work too well, this trying to get everybody to sign it. So that's where the petition idea came from. So it didn't really come from Northern Health, but so it's become a little bit more of a, not just Northern Health, it's more of a community thing now. So I've had people in the community with the petitions. Lots of people have, helped out that had nothing to do with Northern Health or, yeah, it's been quite interesting to see how many people have, taken the petition and gotten people to sign it. And I don't know them, but they wanted to do something. I think that's one of the problems right now is people feel so hopeless about what can we do about this situation that they want to do something, and so it was something that they could do.
Well,
Yeah.
there's two thoughts with this, and I certainly agree with Councillor Rudenberg that we're stronger when we advocate together,
Right.
not only municipalities and regional districts, but health authorities. When we come together on an issue, we're stronger. However, it seems there might be an opportunity for two prongs on this. We seem to have a facility that could be quickly repurposed to suit this need. I would suggest that if every municipality and regional district wrote a strong letter of support to your cause, to your recommendation, that, articulating what you've shared with us tonight, which I know for me it's certainly made an impact. I can't help but think if you had 15 to 20 local government bodies in the north articulating exactly what you've just told us tonight, that would make a difference.
Thank you.
Okay, well, are we, any further questions? We do have quite a busy agenda
Right.
ahead of
Well,
us.
thank you. I
So
very
Dr.
much
Kane,
appreciate it.
thank you, and you can take credit for getting the proverbial ball rolling
Yes.
at this table. So thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
that. And we look forward to more.
Great.
Just before we get into city staff reports, I see that we've got the Martindale brothers here. We're going to do one more item of business, and then we're on to your item, so stay put. Okay, so now we'd like to go to city staff reports, and this is admin report 79/25, land acknowledgement, Manager Robinson to report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So the purpose of this report is to seek a resolution from Council that will assist the municipality and all First Nation government partners move forward on a path of relationship building, collaboration, and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples who have traditionally and currently reside and do business in the area around Quesnel. And before I move on to the recommendation, it's important to note that Council has identified improved First Nations relations as a priority within its current strategic plan, recognizing that many of the city's focus areas for improvement, so that's development and resiliency, health and safety, housing, services and infrastructure, and many more, are all priorities that the nations share. Better outcomes for all populations that the municipality serves can only be achieved through cooperation and collaboration. So now on to the recommendation, if I may. That Council broaden the First Nation land acknowledgement to include the Southern Dakel and Sokoteen nations in the Quesnel area. The new proposed wording is, Quesnel City Council recognizes that this meeting is held on the traditional territories of the LHTAKO DENE, NASCO, Lakuz DENE, and Esdala nations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Are you making a motion to that effect? Councillor Rudenberg is moving, seconded Councillor McKelvey. Do we have any? Go ahead, Councillor Elliott, or Councillor Goulet, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much for this, and this is great for us to move forward in reconciliation. One thing, though, that I'm looking at when I look at reconciliation and Indigenous people, Aboriginal people, is there's two groups, a Métis and an Inuit, who also reside on the area and are part of the community, not land rights holders, but do have a way of doing business within this area and within that land. So I'm having difficulty. I'd just like to see that we be inclusive of everybody, and by including those, I think we've covered off the Indigenous and Aboriginal population and shows that we are in true reconciliation with what is supposed to be. When we also, looking at a land acknowledgement, and I might have shared this, but I think a land acknowledgement comes from here. It doesn't come from something written on a piece of paper. A land acknowledgement comes from that individual, so that individual might work, live, play, and share their traditional cultures on that land, and welcome to the land. That is a traditional opening and a way of doing business, rather than just reading a statement of people's traditional territories. If you really dig into the Indigenous ways of doing business, you'll see Indigenous leaders speak from here and talk about welcoming you from here onto the traditional territory. So I just want to add those, and I don't know if that's an amendment, but I would like to add Métis and Inuit to this at some point.
Thank you for that.
I can make that amendment if that's okay. Like, I'll make an amendment that we add Métis and Inuit just to be inclusive.
Okay. I've been giving this a lot of serious thought, and being the one that's in the chair that will deliver the land acknowledgement, I feel that I would have the latitude to include, for instance, reference and acknowledgement to the many nations that pass through our community. I mean, basically, here we are on Highway 97, and virtually every Indigenous community in the province, when they travel through here, they come right through this territory. And also, I agree with Councillor Goulet on recognizing the Métis, and so I would encourage us to sort of go one step at a time, and if we can get this resolution approved, certainly we can build on it in the future. But I do encourage Council to at least get this one passed. Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you. And I appreciate your words, Mayor. Councillor Goulet, the fact that those two communities have not been proposed in the new wording does not negate the fact that you can include them when you do the recognition. This is a kind of a model to start with, and if you feel that you would like to add Métis or Inuit to your recognition, nobody's saying you can't do that. And like you said, it has to be from the heart, and it has to mean something for the person who's saying it. And as the mayor said, this is our starting point. And it's just a way of starting to recognize those communities that we do work and who are in and around the community of Quesnel.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anything more before I call the question on this first? Go ahead, Councillor Goulet.
Thank you. And I did read this, and I read it a couple times, and I'm looking at all of this legislation and the calls to action, the DRIPA, and all these things that are put in place. And there's a lot of work that we have to do as municipalities, communities, and individuals to really understand what's happening here, especially with Indigenous reconciliation and how we do that in a respectful and dialogical way. I just feel that, I've been down this route before where a group of people have been excluded from things just because the word Indigenous has come up, and there's a lot of discussion around what is Indigenous. Aboriginal is under the Canadian Constitution, Section 35, which states Aboriginal people are First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, 3 groups of people. It doesn't go into all of these other land claims, all of these other things. It's very quite broad and specific. If you really want to understand it, it goes to the First Nations who are governed by the Indian Act. The Métis are governed by their own legislation from Saskatchewan and defines a Red River and a whole settlement of where you have to come from. The Inuit have a thing that dialogues themselves and governs themselves. I'm just saying that if we want to really, really be looking at reconciliation, let's not, just jump in and do this. I think we should have this discussion at a strategic planning where we can put it into how we acknowledge that moving forward and how we be respectful as we do that. So thanks.
Thank you. And I'm going to come to you, Councillor Rudenberg. I have been talking to City Manager about exactly that we have a strategic planning session that is focused on Aboriginal Indigenous relations and the whole ball of wax. And I got to say, Councillor Goulet, I think the rest of council are very thankful that we've got you here to sort of be a bit of a guiding light in this, so stay tuned. So, Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you. I don't want this to be an issue that pulls this council apart. This was not meant to do that. I think that perhaps that, I forget the proper term, where we put this on hold so that we can have that conversation. Whether it's at our next strategic planning or not, but I don't want this to be that defining moment again for council, that we can't agree on something when it comes to how we move forward.
Councillor Rudenberg, you.
Thank you. I was going to say, Ms. Hartley, how do we do that?
You're looking for a motion to defer to a time and place.
Well, I don't know about the time and place. That's the unfortunate piece.
After
I would withdraw your original motion and ask for a motion to postpone it to either indefinitely or definitely to a certain meeting.
Right. Well, I don't want it to be indefinite because I think it's something that we do need to deal with, and it's going to take courage to come to that final decision. I get that. We may not all get what we want, so I will withdraw my motion. Do I need a seconder for that, Ms. Hartley?
No, you need consent of the seconder.
Thank you.
Okay, so just procedurally then, we do not have a motion, but also, I mean, at the same time, we have a commitment to discuss this further. And so I think now that we've got that looked after, we can move on to the next item of business.
So I want to make the point that this cannot drag on ad nauseum. We need to deal with it at the next opportunity, whether it's strategic planning or whatever, but this cannot drag on for a year. This needs to be dealt with in a timely fashion. So whatever that looks like, like I said, I'd like to see it well before the end of the year. So I don't know if we need that as a motion or just as everybody nod their head, yes, it needs to be dealt with. The city manager?
We can take that as staff direction.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And I think as soon after UBCM as possible, it's going to be pretty tough to squeeze that in before UBCM, but it's certainly high on our radar. So, okay, moving along then to item K2. This is Admin Report 7725, and this is Development Variance Permit for 383 Reid Street, Granville's vehicular roof sign. Director Turner to report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is just a bit of a cleanup process. In summary, a vehicle was installed in 2019. The applicant requires a variance as the proposed vehicle has a sign. It is a type of sign and unfortunately does meet some of the sign bylaw regulations. There was some work done by the proponents in order to satisfy the building inspection requirements, which would require just some structural engineering. That has all been taken care of at this point. So at this point, we're looking to move forward with the variance to get the formal approval on the sign. And the variances include the sign bylaw currently prohibits signs displayed on roofs, rooftop signs above the roof line, and vehicle signs, which means signs on vehicles that are not moving in traffic. Those three variances are included in the recommendation, which I'll read out. And again, this sign is, as I say, installed and has now meets all the building inspection requirements. And through this variance, we can complete the approval of it. The recommendation is that Council approve DVP 2025-81 on Lot A, Townsite Quesnel of Quesnel, Plan PGP 23292 to vary Section 5.11, subsections B, C, and L of the City of Quesnel sign bylaw number 1852/2018 to allow a sign on a stationary vehicle on a roof.
Okay, thank you for that. Moved Councillor Vick, seconded Councillor McKelvey. Is there any discussion? Are we all in favor? Opposed? Carried. There you go, gentlemen. You're approved. So Quesnel's most iconic car lives on. Thank you. Okay, next item is item number K34, Admin Report 7525, Development Variance Permit 405 Elliott Street. Director Turner to report.
Thank you, Mayor. Taking you right through the background, the city became aware of unpermitted construction the fall of 2021. The property owner applied for building permits. However, submissions were incomplete. New building permits were applied for in the spring of 2023, in addition to the subject development permit. Through the review, it was determined that there was floodplain conditions that needed to be met, as well as a number of variances that needed to be considered for the full approval of the development. The construction that occurred on the property included construction of a 4.66 meter addition on a dwelling, construction of a covered entryway and attached deck, construction of 2 additions on the second dwelling, movement of storage sheds, and the movement of the storage sheds occurred in order to meet and to develop compliance with the bylaws, construction of a 1.83 meter fence height on the English Avenue frontage. In addition, dwelling 2 was required to be proposed to be reduced in size to meet the floodplain requirements. The floodplain section describes why that reasoning was required. Basically, because it is below the floodplain, it is only allowed to go have an addition of 25%. The full addition was not able to be allowed, so a conversion back to a veranda was completed. So this again, I'm just going to read through the variance processes. Majority of this work has already been done and worked through with the proponent, and this is just again rectifying all of the requirements for the variances, etc. A few amendments will still be required to be completed, but our construction considerations will need to be completed with the proponent, and then just the final building permit to clarify up some of these issues. The recommendations is that council approve DP 2023-57 for the construction of additions to 2 existing dwellings on lots 1 and 2, Block 11, District Lot 386, Caribou District Plan 772, and that council vary Section 22.51D of the City of Quesnel zoning bylaw 1880 to reduce the principal building interior property line setback to 1.12 meters, and that council varies Section 4.8.3 of the City of Quesnel zoning bylaw 1880 to reduce the accessory building front property line setback to 1.52 meters, and to allow an accessory building to be sited in front of the principal building, and that council vary Section 4.86 of the City of Quesnel zoning bylaw 1880 to reduce the accessory building rear property line setback to 1.09 meters, and the council vary Section 4.11.1A of the City of Quesnel zoning bylaw 1880 to increase the front yard fence height to 1.83 meters. Staff's recommending these variances.
Okay, thank you for that. Could I have a mover for this one? Go ahead, Councillor. Are you moving, Councillor Elliott? Okay, you're moving. So I have a mover, and Councillor Goulet is seconding. Is there any discussion before I call the question? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And I just want to make a point here to really thank staff for this one's been going on for a long time. I don't know how many times I've been over to 405 Elliott. It's just like it's on a trap line for me. Thank you for that, and I have spoken to the proponents, and they're happy with the way that this has rolled out. But so again, well done. Okay. Oh, did I call the question on that? I'm just so excited that I forgot where I was at. Okay, now we're going to go to Admin Report 7825 Shiraoi. City Manager McKay to report.
Thank you for that, Mayor. My comments will be brief. As you can see in your agenda package, there is an information here report that covers off an impromptu meeting that occurred during a private excursion that a couple of our councillor members and yourself were on as part of a cultural exchange in our sister city in Shiraoi, Japan, and Hokkaido. More recently during that, and following discussions here around trade diversification, members of council were invited to have a discussion around, hey, how do we continue to broaden that relationship with our sister city, which has been in place for many years. And it was brought to my attention that although the trip was private and the discussions were impromptu, that it was important to share this information with council, given the federal and provincial focus on trade diversification and our own desire as a city to continue to find other markets for our products. So that is why this is in package for information, but I will turn it over to Councillor Vic, who has more commentary and was there. I was not. So.
Thank you, City Manager. And I'm certain the Mayor will have a few comments as well. But just to reiterate, you were saying there was no agenda to have a formal meeting with staff or the principals of small business or the Board of Education. But when we arrived there, and I'm sure Councillor Runge and the Mayor will reiterate, the welcome was very robust. They're very interested in this relationship with our good city here, and that confidence was very inspiring. So it felt natural for me to say, did you guys want to grab a coffee and talk about some things? And they were very willing. And the short meeting was attended by one staff member from the city, which roughly equates to the city manager, although the title is a little different. A member of the Board of Education attended, who happens to be Canadian and is bilingual, so that was very handy in the meeting. A director from the Chamber of Commerce, and then someone involved in small business there. So you've read some of the comments from that meeting, but I guess there's two thoughts I have on that. For one, I think the 40-year plus relationship we have with Shiraoi, I think we should reaffirm that. The commitment is very strong on the other side of the Pacific, and we should reaffirm our commitment to maintaining that twinning relationship. I think it's important. There's no cost to the city of Quesnel other than a gift. And I think there's a very strong willingness to keep that relationship strong. So that would be one thought I have on this. And the second thought I have is it's very timely that considering the magnitude of the trade implications for our city with the reliance we have on wood products and forestry, the devastation that incremental tariffs can have on our local economy, I thought it was really timely that we were able to have sort of an example of community-to-community diplomacy occur. And we uncovered a lot of similarities, both in our culture with Indigenous people and our journey in understanding how we're living on Indigenous land and that journey in coming to understanding and with reconciliation. They are going through that same journey as we are. They're also going through an aging population journey, which we are also going through a same struggle. So we have so many commonalities, and trade is really in there as well. So I thought it might be timely to send a note to our federal and provincial counterparts in terms of trade that we are fully supportive of them finding alternate trading partners. And in fact, we're so in support of that we engaged in a little of our own diplomacy to advance our relationship. And so I thought a letter to our federal and provincial trade reps that we've engaged in this, and we recommend other small municipalities to also get to know other countries that we may do trade with, that you may have cultural similarities or cultural connections with. So those are the two thoughts I had. It's at council's wishes, but definitely very timely, and obviously the trip was tremendous from an educational perspective, but cultural sharing was just phenomenal. So I'll leave it to anyone else who'd like to make a comment.
Thank you. I'd like to make some comments, and then I'll open the floor up. Is that okay with you, Councillor Elliott, if I do my thing here? I've got some written comments, and it goes like this. 13 of us, including Councillors Vic and Runge, and their significant others, plus 8 local youth, 4 of whom are First Nations youth. And without reservation, I must say how very honored and proud we were to have them in our company. They demonstrated an admirably high level of respect and patience for new, to them, cultures, language, and cuisines. And their collective politeness, patience, and understanding of long days with many long waits was also a high point, all in sticky heat and humidity. I am sending each of them a letter of appreciation on behalf of council. Now, I did get to attend a meeting, and it was basically with no notice with the mayor and councillors and the town manager of Shiraoi immediately upon arriving there. In fact, I could see that they had a gift ready to present to us, so I quickly had to go into my suitcase and get the gift that we were presenting to them, which was a framed picture of the walking bridge all lit up. Only to my dismay that I found that the glass in the picture was completely shattered, and so how could I present that? And there was a staff member there, and he quickly hustled the picture away, and within 30 minutes he was back with the picture with new glass in it. So I mean, I was just blown away by that. So I had this meeting. I know that councillors Runge and Vic met with other officials, but I met with the mayor and the councillors and the town manager to discuss furtherance of twinning relationship, rekindling our business and economic development relationships. And again, this was all informal, and it was all on the spur of the moment, but definitely there is a wish on their part to see the twinning relationship continue. I want to talk for a moment about 2026 and 2028. The way that it works is, or at least the way that it's worked in the past, is that Quesnel goes to Shiraoi as a delegation. It's usually youth. in every second year, and then Shiraoi comes to Quesnel in every second year. So here in 2025, Quesnel went to Shiraoi, but guess what? 2026 is the 50th anniversary of Billy Barker Days, and we're sort of angling at having a delegation come to Quesnel for that event. And guess what? Number 2 is that 2028 is our 100th anniversary. So the stars and the dates are lining up very, very, very well. In fact, Shiraoi is home to a wonderful little 50s and 60s rock band called the Shiraois, and I know every one of them personally. And I'm suggesting that maybe they might like to come and perform in our next year's Billy Barker Days parade. So I'm on a mission to get them here. I just want to say for a moment an observation, and this really has nothing to do with economic development and all the rest, but it's an opportune time to sort of express my observation. And we were in Korea for a week and also in Japan for a week. So I got to compare the two. They are both very, very crowded, extremely crowded. So when I got home, I did some research. I found that the population density of Korea and Japan compared to Canada are well beyond 10 to 1 in terms of their population density compared to ours. In view of that, my observation from this, and I think 4 or 5 previous visits, but particularly the light came on during this visit, was that I did not see any homeless or vulnerable people pushing shopping buggies. I didn't see one tent. I didn't see a panhandler. Very little litter that was quickly cleaned up in the morning. In fact, very few smoking on the street. A refreshing change from that we have here in Canada, and it's something that we can aspire to. So I'll leave it at that and open the floor up to any comments or suggestions. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm glad the 3 of you had a good trip. I predicted that there would be some meetings when you went over there, and I'm a little disappointed, and quite honestly, that we weren't included in those. It could have been as easy as an email just to see, as Councillor Vic mentioned, it's a very, very important time. Trade is a huge thing right now. I think that some of the other councillors might have had a couple of questions that could have been asked. I'm glad that the relationship building is going strong. I hope this has nothing to do with Shiraoi House itself here, because we have a tenant that's very strong. But yeah, maybe in the future we can get a heads up, even if it was a quick email the day before, to see if anybody had any comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Elliott. And just to sort of comment, yes, I could have sent out an email to council explaining, the trip and so on, but I like to save that for a council meeting where I can share it with the entire community. So if you feel that we need to change our tune on reporting out to council, we'll have that discussion in due course. Is there anything? Oh, Councillor Elliott, sorry.
No, that's not what I was saying, Mr. Mayor. You're allowed to meet with anyone. I'm just saying that when Councillor Vic and Runge went and talked to the Chamber of Commerce and others, it would have been interesting to have that knowledge in advance, so we could have thrown a couple of questions. It's nothing to do with how it's being reported out. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, thank you for that. Councillor Vic.
Sorry, I understand, Councillor Elliott, your concern, but I have to tell you that was all impromptu. Those individuals showed up to our surprise. We were going to have a coffee with one individual, and it turned into, thankfully, a really good, robust conversation with others. So I understand what you're saying. I would love to have had advanced knowledge to give everyone an opportunity to ask questions of me, to ask of them. But it was very impromptu, and it was just a happy gathering that was spontaneous. So I hope that...
Yeah, and finally, to sort of conclude here, I think that all of these informal discussions are a stepping stone to formal discussions in the future. Councillor Rutenberg.
Thank you. So I would suggest that somehow we look back in some of the minute meetings we've had many years ago in regards to reports that were brought forward with other delegations that did go on behalf of the city. I know that Councillor Elliott and myself and Mary Schustrom, the mayor at the time, went over on an economic development trip where we talked with wood people. We talked with Haskell Berry co-ops. We did a discussion with education and with their council. And so there are probably reports talking about some of those discussions that might now be prominent again. A lot of their wood pieces was around birch. We toss birch away and burn it. The Haskell Berry piece, it actually has taken off here. But I think that, the opportunities for economic development were always part of why we have Shiraoi as a twinning society or as a twinning community. The other piece is I don't recall having any conversation about not wanting to keep that twinning moving forward. So I'm glad to hear that they are happy to keep it moving, because I don't think there's ever been a discussion here about canceling that here. So, if we need to just say, yep, we're good, we want to continue, and here's some additional pieces that, we need to think about because of what's happening in the world of trade and economics. I can live with that. But, I think that, there are some reports, and I'm not sure how easy it would be to go back and talk, find them to see where the nuances were, where the similarities were, and whether they are still relevant in this day and age. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. Is there anyone else before we move on to our next item of business? Oh, sorry, Councillor Elliott.
Yep, no problem. Lori, Amy was still a part of economic development at that point in time. She just wasn't in the building. So I'm sure that she would probably have them. And it would be very interesting to read up on those again.
Thank you for that, Councillor Elliott.
Your homework.
Now can we move along? Thank you. Okay, the next report is council report number, it says 2025, but this is on land use bylaw updates, and the Director of Development Services to report on this one.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just to give council a bit of an update as to where we are with the official community plan, zoning bylaw, and development applications procedures bylaw, those massive amendments that we're doing right now. And just to make sure that we do get some timing out there in terms of upcoming events that will be taking place with regard to these bylaw updates. So in summary, small housing and Alpine consultants are in the process of reviewing these zoning, the OCP plan, as well as the zoning bylaw, and they are just starting to tackle development application procedures bylaw. The first public open house was held in May. Additional public consultation will be held in October following a review of the proposed amendments in September with council. So we hope to have draft bylaws to council in September. The intent will be to have the official community plan and zoning bylaw complete and adopted in December. Work on the development procedures bylaw has begun and will, again, as I said, continue into March. So some significant days. Again, we're hoping to have somewhere close, hopefully September 16th meeting, the draft bylaws to council just for review and consideration. That's the OCP and the zoning bylaw only. There will be a public consultation event that we're starting to plan in the community that will happen between the 7th and 9th of October. We're hoping to have by October 21st, the first reading of the bylaw. There'll be some referrals that are required with these bylaw updates, a public hearing by November 4th, and a final adoption of the OCP and zoning bylaw by the end of December, which is meeting, hopefully, the province's schedule, as long as council's okay with all the amendments. The development application procedures bylaw will be continuing on through to March, following those adoptions. So again, we're getting those dates out there to council, or out to the public. I'm hopefully going to be sending stuff to council too, so you can spread it out to as much people as you can, as well to get the word about the second public consultation session.
Okay, thank you for that. There is a recommendation, but it doesn't require a resolution. It's for council's information only. And another one that has a similar recommendation for council's information is report number 74, 2025 from the Director of Development Services Cold Weather Plan.
Thank you, Council. And this is, again, to give you an update on this planning process. We received $30,000 of grant funding from Spark BC for the development of a cold weather plan. The purpose of the plan is to develop a plan that addresses the unique needs and circumstances of the community as it pertains to warming centers and resources for extreme cold weather events. Level Up Planning Collaborative has been selected as a successful proponent for this developing this plan. The consultant has completed a startup meeting with staff and are in the process of reviewing material to develop and have developed a draft project plan, and I've attached that plan for consideration. Staff are not for consideration, for information. Staff are working with the group on a couple of amendments to that plan and just adjust it up as it goes as they launch their full review. It's generally what's going to be occurring. The advisory committee is being formed, which will provide input into this work, and the advisory committee will be made up of a bunch of different resources throughout the community service providers. Again, we will be getting some of this information up on the project website, just to let you know where this is going to be coming along in the upcoming months. We're hoping to have a brief background report by October 15th, as well as a community engagement plan. We're looking for the What We Learned report by January 15th. We'll be looking for a draft extreme cold weather plan by February and a final extreme cold weather plan by March. Obviously, the dates are a little because the cold's going to be happening. Of course, we're going to be working with those agencies and planning and dealing with whatever we need to with respect to having the cold weather centers and warming centers and planning going along with that. So we think it's actually ideal timing.
Thank you. The question of timing certainly is on my mind, and I know that we're going to do the best we can to sort of expedite this as quickly as possible. And certainly if we, do encounter an extreme cold weather event, we've had that before, and there's going to be a lot of information and resources in this plan that even though it's not formally adopted yet, that we can lean on it. So thank you for that. Okay, so now I'm going to go to correspondence, and we have a letter, actually a petition, from a group of citizens on 700 block of McLean Street. I wonder if, Ria, we could have that summarized into the record, and then we'll have a discussion on it.
You bet. So we received the letter July 24th. It contains 9 signatures from residents on McLean Street. It was authored by Carmen Valoroso on their behalf. I'm writing to formally raise a concern regarding the condition of the 700 block of McLean Street. The road has been in a state of disrepair for several years, at least 4, and despite patchwork efforts to fill potholes, the surface continues to deteriorate. The current condition of the street poses several ongoing challenges. It is difficult to drive on safely, increases wear and tear on vehicles, and creates a hazard for pedestrians due to loose rubble and debris. Temporary fixes have not been sufficient, and it is clear that a more permanent solution is required. As a resident of the block, I speak not only for myself, but for others, and they are just looking for direction from council on how to get that expedited.
Thank you for that. Sorry. Thank you. Before I open up the floor, I just want to sort of give my views on this. I've gone up, in fact, I went up today and had a look at it. I've received maybe 3 or 4 phone calls on it over the last year or so. And when I went up and looked at it today, yes, the 700 block of McLean Street and also the adjoining easterly portion of Gordon Avenue are in need of some help. But as I drove along Gordon Avenue, I came to new pavement. Then I came to Highway 97, and I drove across and still on Gordon Avenue to where it joins into Welcome Street. That's all new pavement. And I would my position would be that we should continue on with that, because I do say that it is in very poor condition. We have a petition here, and certainly that can come up at our capital budgeting discussion. Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you. And I don't know if anybody here can answer this question, but I know that we do have plans that are based on the needs of roads that need to be repaved. City manager, do we have that? You probably don't have that at your fingertips. I know there's a billion different things, but I think we need to see where it is in the grand scheme of things before we start trying to push things ahead, because it sort of sets a dangerous precedent. If somebody writes a petition and all of a sudden we change where they sit. Anyway, it'd be interesting to see where this one lands.
Yeah, to respond to that, Councillor Rudenberg, we are aware of the condition and would agree it is in poor condition. The challenge with this project, I mean, there's a number of challenges just at a very surface level, but one of them is that we also understand it's not just a paving project, it will actually need base work. So from a capital planning perspective, it is going to be more expensive. So it will have to be considered as we move into budget and capital planning for the following year amongst where the other priorities are for our roadwork projects. So the petition is welcome to bring forward a discussion around where this fits so that our committee and council can consider this versus the other projects that are already on the list to do. So that's all I can say at this point.
Yeah, thank you. Before I go to Councillor Elliott, I just want to say that I know how this works. I've been around long enough, and you know, I'm not for a minute suggesting that we get out there and pave it this year or even next year, that it gets into the queue, so to speak. And speaking of the queue, when I got elected to mayor, I campaigned on some kind of a sidewalk or some kind of an area on the side of Westland Road to service the numerous trailer parks down there on Westland Road that are predominantly occupied by seniors, and that still hasn't happened yet, but again, it is in the queue. So I'm going to Councillor Elliott now.
Okay, thank you. No, city manager covered off what I was going to say. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? Okay, so it's in the queue. Now, we're getting towards the end of the meeting here. Just one moment. Make sure that I've got no more items of business. Oh yeah, we do. We're going to go to new business. It's not very often we have new business. We have two resolutions that are up for rescinding. Resolution number 2514-162 and 163. So I'd like to get motions to rescind 162, which says that Quesnel City Council approves submitting a grant application to the West Riverside Housing Development and Densification Project to the Capital Infrastructure Stream of the Strategic Priorities Fund. There's a call to actually rescind that resolution. So is there an explanation necessary from staff, or are we good to go?
I was advised by Coordinator Coppin that there was specific language in the Strategic Priorities Fund grant application that had to be included in the resolution.
Okay, so are we rescinding it or amending it?
You're rescinding it and then adopting the new language the next time over as per the funder's guidelines.
Okay, so but for purposes of this meeting, we are simply rescinding.
We also
Rescinding first and then moving forward you'll see it on the next page over, the language for the new motion, the updated language.
Oh, okay. So basically, can we do that in one motion? Like, no, so it has to be rescind and then make a new motion and rescind and make a new motion. Okay, so I will call for a resolution to rescind 2514-162 as I just read it out. Moved Councillor Elliott, or pardon me, moved Councillor Goulet, seconded Councillor McKelvey.
And I apologize, Mayor. You can rescind. I would say you could rescind both with one motion, and then
all right,
we'll
that
need
makes
two
it easy.
separate motions for the new one.
So we're therefore a motion to rescind 162 and 163. Okay, so so we do have a mover and a seconder. Are we all in favor? We're all in favor, so that is carried. So now we need a motion, and can we do the next two in one motion, or do you want two motions?
There are two separate grant applications, so I prefer two.
So they're two separate motions. Okay, so now we will do a new motion to replace 162. Can I have a mover? Councillor Rudenberg, Councillor Vic. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now we're going to do another one to replace 163, moved by Councillor Goulet, seconded Councillor McKelvey. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Good. Okay, announcements and events. And I'm just going to part from the regular way of doing things because there's a couple of items that have come up since this agenda was actually published. And one of them has to do with the fire up on 2 Mile Flat that started in the middle of the night, Friday night, Saturday morning. I just want to take a moment to proudly and profoundly express our appreciation for the efforts of the dedicated professional volunteer firefighters of our Quesnel Volunteer Fire Department, all of our regional mutual aid rural fire departments, the West Fraser Mills Fire Department, BC Wildfire Service, private contractors, and others for answering the call so very early Saturday morning to control and contain a very serious and a potentially extremely serious log and chip pile fire on 2 Mile Flat. Appreciation also goes to our city staff and emergency social services for a job that was so willingly and quickly well done. Thank you. That's number one. Number two has to do with the famous interconnector. After the agenda for this council meeting was put together, we have learned that council's application to meet with the Minister of Transportation, Mike Farnworth, at UBCM regarding the too long awaited Quesnel Highway 97 North-South Interconnector project has been denied. After all of our hard work in preparing for our expected meeting, we are obviously disappointed, especially in view of the very welcome support from our friends and neighbors at the Caribou Regional District in terms of their efforts to have a resolution of support endorsed by the North Central Local Government Association and then sent to the floor of next month's UBCM conference. This whole package has disappointingly been removed from the minister's meeting agenda and from UBCM resolutions debate. We do have a very limited time option of challenging these regrettable last-minute decisions, or alternatively, and I always look for the silver lining behind every cloud, we could reorganize in preparation for a special delegation to appeal to the minister in Victoria following UBCM this coming winter. By the way, we were also denied a meeting opportunity, I believe, with the Minister of Forests on another meeting opportunity. I open the floor to any comments or questions or concerns. Councillor Rudenberg.
The meeting with the minister, I'm going to set that aside for now because I think there's some political pressure, politely, that we can put on that, but that's another discussion. What I'd like to discuss about is the fact that UBCM Resolution Committee has relegated this resolution to the RR, which means it's a referred resolutions block, which means it cannot be debated during resolutions because they've sent it back to the area association because they feel it is regional in concern. I think that can be highly debated, that this resolution around supporting an alternate truck route and bypass, whatever you want to call it, is a provincial issue. I think that, unfortunately, I'm not sure if they're trying to, I know that they've got another resolution around how they deal with resolutions to try and cut back on the 200-some resolutions that they get every year. But unfortunately, I don't think they've looked at the bigger picture of how an alternate truck route affects the entire province. I was looking at to see who sits on that committee, and two are actually from the north, one from Prince George and one from Fort St. John. So it surprises me that they weren't able to kind of step up and say, hey, wait a minute, listen. So I would like to suggest, Mayor, that we challenge the resolution committee in regards to that particular resolution. I can give the staff member, Jamie Justison, a heads up, and also their chair, Pete Fry, he's a councillor out of Vancouver, a heads up that this will be coming back to them. I think that if we give them the scope of the concern of not having the alternate truck route looked at by the province, they might just take it out of the RR section, the relegated to the back of the book, not to be debated section. So I'd like to put forth a motion that we challenge the team on this. It doesn't have to be, hard worded, but we can put down our reasoning why we think this needs to be pulled out and discussed on the floor as a resolution. And if we do that, then I'd also like permission just to give Pete Fry and Jamie, I do know them quite closely because I've worked with these people, give them the heads up that this would be coming forward, operating on the premise of no surprises.
Okay, thank you for that, and I'm sure you will not have any trouble getting a seconder for that motion in terms of Councillor McKelvey. Thank you. So, is there any further discussion on that? I presume I'm going to bet here that we're going to be unanimous on this one. So thank you for that, Council, and thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. Well done. Okay, I think we're pretty well done then, aren't we, for now? So wait a minute. I got to ask for questions from the gallery.
Excuse me, point of order. Don't you at least have to take that vote, Mr. Mayor?
I thought we did. Okay, you want to have a vote? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I told you that's how it would go. All right. So we have no changes to upcoming meeting schedule. We have no changes to committee appointments. We've done the announcements and events. Now I'm going to go to gallery questions.
Sorry, I do have an announcement.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay, because this just came across our emails, and it's more of a public service announcement for people. Because of the hot weather that we have happening, and it looks like we've got at least another week of hot weather, Category 1 campfires will be prohibited throughout the Caribou Fire region as of noon on Thursday, August the 28th, and it will be prohibited throughout the Caribou Fire and the Silcoteen declared tidal area. Prohibition will remain in effect until noon on Thursday, September 11th. And for those who don't know what a Category 1 campfire is, it's defined as any fire smaller than 0.5 meters high by 0.5 meters wide. So in other words, there are no campfires allowed.
Thank you for that. Very timely information. Anything more? Okay, and no.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Elliott, go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly. 2 weekends ago, Councillor Rudenberg and I were down at Laborde Park for the Foundry event. So Foundry is a group that is working with youth to strengthen youth in the community, and it was well attended. They were giving out free food for kids, for everyone, and it was absolutely amazing. Hundreds of kids running around in Laborde Park, and they had a competition to see who could get as many signatures on their shirt as possible, and they asked me to do that. I was fortunate enough to win and got to get dunked by ice cold water, so that was exciting. And shout out to Councillor Rudenberg, who was working the cotton candy machine and must have done 2,000 cotton candy. She was there all day long. So it was a wonderful event, and thanks for Foundry for supporting all the youth.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anything more? Any questions from the gallery? Seeing none, I will call for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Rudenberg, seconded by Councillor Vic. Are we all in favor? Opposed? Carried.